Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
When you talked about being at school, a lot of times the parents, they're not putting those parameters on those devices, and they're using them as a substitute for parenting. Because, when you want your kid to be out of your face instead of interacting with them, you just shove them with the iPad and put it in the corner. That's not how you're supposed to raise your kids. You raise your kids using those devices as an assistive tool, not a way to substitute parenting. And so you've got to be able to do that. And speaking of schools, Chris, one of the things that we were talking about before was declining enrollment. And it's a nationwide thing that's going on. And you talked about the role of the parent. You talked about different societal trajectories and ways that we're going. What's on your mind about declining enrollment, and what do you think's going on?
Well, I think a lot of the declining enrollment right now has to do with migration too. So I think you're seeing like a lot of migration stuff, like specifically California is seeing that a lot with school migration. You're also seeing it in Texas too. There's a lot of it going on in North Texas. But I think number one, it's migration. I think you're seeing a lot of people that are now leaving neighborhoods, and you're seeing the net effect of that. But at the same time, I think that also people are seeing the options with charter schools, private schools. Charter schools are very affordable. Online schools are dominating still right now. I mean, a lot of my kids did online school for 3 years. My kids, all of COVID. Okay. Yeah. And then private online school when I first got to Texas for, I think 2 years, I think they did private online. And that helped them a lot. So I think I think parents are fed up with school systems pushing narratives, and all of it. I don't think it's one thing, Len. I think it's a lot of things coming down on the back, and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. I think it's just all of these different things are compounding now, and people are starting to see. I'm not really getting the value out of that school district or school system that they're saying I did. Like who wants to send their school? Nobody wants to send their kid to school and you have to worry about what they're hearing or they're learning.
I agree.
You don't want to learn about, you don't want to have to worry about that. It's just odd. It was funny because I know this is not a thing in California because I know my kids went to school in California, but my kids, when they came home the other day, they were saying something about school. And I'm like, dang, they're that strict. I went, that's like some old school stuff. Like I didn't know that they still did that in school. Like I thought they went away with that.
What are you talking about?
They're not like if they didn't pass a physical test, they weren't allowed to do something in gym class. So if they weren't able to do push-ups or a certain amount of push-ups and pull-ups, they weren't allowed to do it, to track. And I'm like, whoa, like, okay, that's hardcore right there. I didn't know they still did that. Well, apparently they still do it here in Texas. Well, maybe that's the majority of Olympic athletes come from Texas. Did you know?
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Either.
Okay.
I didn't know that either until recently. But I think a lot of it has to do with migration. I don't think it's as big as a deal as people probably think it is. I think it just has a lot to do with people don't want to live in those areas anymore. And you're starting to see it now. I mean, people don't want to live in California and get taxed for everything they do.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, there's a lot of different variables, and it's just up to us to try to parse out what those variables are and make sense to it. Because on the one hand, when you looked at the preceding generations, the generations before us, you had a dynamic economy where you had people that were growing up and then they'd go off to college or go to a trade school and they'd go get a job and then they'd have to change locations and they'd move. And then you had affordable housing in those areas where people can move into a house. And so now you had whole communities, and then you had people moving from urban areas to suburban areas. So then you had up and coming communities. And so they had to build schools to accommodate those kids. And so now you have those same suburban communities, but because the prices of houses have gone up, then people are saying, well, why would I move? And so then instead of leaving in 5 to 7 years, they're now living there 20 and 30 years. And so then you don't have this incoming influx of new families into the neighborhood. So like I can tell you right now, like in my neighborhood, I would say maybe 20% of the families have been here less than 10 years. Everybody else has been here more than 10 years in a big way. So now the surrounding schools are starting to have declining enrollment. Why? Because in the neighborhood where I live, it's a mature community. So you've got, parents and grandparents and their kids are moving away and moving out. And so I would imagine that many of them are now delaying having kids. So now because they're delaying having kids, what does that mean? You don't have kids going to school, and so when, like I've got a 29-year-old and a 27-year-old as of the 29th of August, and they're, one has a girlfriend and one, it's complicated, but neither of them have kids. And
I'm taking lessons from you.
Neither of them have kids. And so because of that, like by the time I was 24, I had my first, and my wife was 23. By the time I was 29, I already had 2 kids. We were good. So meaning, now, 24 plus 5 is 29. And so now there's a new kid enrolled into the school. Whereas my 29-year-old, he doesn't have any kids. I'm glad because, he's not in a situation where, it would be ideal for him where he is in his life. But that's not the point. The point is because people were able to be equipped financially to support kids. More schools continue to have more kids because they're around and they were being birthed. So like you said, there's all these different factors.
So what we need to do is we need to find and force all the baby boomers to sell their houses. So that young people can move into these neighborhoods.
Hey, I believe that if baby boomers had $300,000-$500,000 of equity and they can move into a house that's $200,000, take that net $200,000 or $300,000 and add that to their retirement, they'd probably move in a heartbeat. It's just not the same levels of opportunity.
It's always a pleasure, sir. You have a phenomenal week.
Likewise.
For those who out there like this content, like and subscribe, follow us. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, and we'll see you on the next one. Len, have a killer week.
Thank you,
and
brother.
Everyone else out there, stay classy, stay safe, and just don't believe the hype, and stay close to your family because everything's gonna be all right. God bless you guys. Thanks, Len.
All right, take care, Chris.
Bye.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.